Hello, I'm Chris Hartwell, and welcome to the Heartbeat. Today we're going to be talking about Paul Greengrass's Jason Bourne. Join me, won't you? So, in Jason Bourne, our title character is once again pulled back into the world of espionage when his old friend Nicky turns up some new information about his past in hand. Unfortunately, that information is quite unhelpfully tied to some secrets that the CIA would kind of prefer our hero not to have, leading the agency and our super assassin into conflict once again. Now, by and large, for me anyways, sequels tend to have a lot more stacked against them than wholly original properties, because if in the previous installments there were visual, emotional, or thematic elements that really resonated with me, I will, without even thinking about it sometimes, before that first trailer even drops, start constructing in my mind what this new installment should and could look like. With Jason Bourne, however, it somehow snuck past that fate, and not because I wasn't looking forward to it, I just genuinely didn't know where the filmmakers would be taking the character this go around, which, as I settled into the theater on opening night, I realized had made me extremely excited to go on this next journey with him. Because I had really liked the previous installments quite a lot, Identity and Ultimatum most especially, as they too, similar to what I was just describing, had this uncanny ability to, each film, surprise me by peeling back more and more layers of Bourne's past, ever unveiling new truths about who he was and what he'd done. But more impressive still, even as each film ended with that same Moby tune underscoring images of our hero walking away, leaving this life of violence and pain behind, I would, 5 minutes into the next film, just totally accept that he would, indeed needed to, come out of hiding to kick some more butt. And from there, the writers on Supremacy and Ultimatum would craft an arc and a series of reveals that wouldn't in any way cheapen what had come before, or just feel like a lame attempt to keep the story going, but actually add to and bolster what had come before. Likewise, on Jason Bourne, as the first few scenes began to unfold, I did genuinely find myself getting excited about what the filmmakers were serving up. As the film opened on a Bourne who was arguably in a darker place than we'd ever seen him before, really being crushed by the realization that knowing who you are doesn't necessarily all by itself bring you peace. And I do recall thinking, as silly as it was, ooh, maybe the reason that the writers opted out of calling this film The Bourne something and just called it Jason Bourne was because this was going to be the film where the title character, now that he learned all that there was to know about his past, would press on into the future in a new and interesting way. And, of course, without spoiling anything, there were certain plot lines and characters that did seem quite ready to explore what Bourne's life would look like were he able to stop wishing that he hadn't been made into this assassin and finally just own that that was who he was and choose to use those skills for good. In the same way, at its outset, the film seemed quite excited about exploring other relevant and interesting topics like the whole privacy versus protection debate and how much our government should or shouldn't be able to hack into our virtual lives. And right at the center of that interesting topic were two of the film's best performances from Tommy Lee Jones, as well as another performer that's fast moving at my favorite actor list, Riz Ahmed. With Tommy Lee Jones, that man's face and soul just inherently carry that weight and fatigue that's so befitting a man who's spent his life keeping secrets, being forced to, over and over again, make that tough call. And with Riz Ahmed too, he brought just the right balance of hubris and humanity to this Mark Zuckerberg type character, and the scenes where those two men faced off, I did find myself genuinely enraptured. And of course it wouldn't be a Bourne film if there weren't generous helpings of handheld, quickly cut action, which, though it will never be my favorite, I would contend on a Bourne film, because of what it brings to the story, it is somewhat excusable. So obviously there's the realism element, as it, even if only subconsciously, elects that feeling that we're watching a documentary, like these are real-life events being captured by a real-life camera crew that's just frantically doing its best to keep up and film it. But even more than that was its connection to the lead character, a man whose mind was as fractured and as disjointed as the camera work and editing. And if there was any one thing that I would praise most about those original three Bourne films, it would be their very strong point of view, each of them sucking us right into what that man was going through. And what he was going through was confusing, frenetic, and tunnel-visioned. So as he strained to understand and comprehend the physical geography around him and the emotional geography within him, longing to understand the whole picture, so did we. And therein lies what this film was lacking most, just that strong point of view, one which we could identify with and root for. And actually, there were a couple scenes in the film that really kind of acted as paradigms for this entire issue. And the first of them actually involved Bourne cornering his foe and instructing him, empty your pockets and decrypt this thing for me. But his demands were all played in close-up, the camera holding tight to Damon's face, making it feel kind of odd that his foe would comply so quickly. It wasn't until about halfway through the scene when Greengrass finally cut wide that we realized Bourne had had a gun in his hand the whole time, and that was the motivator for his foe's actions. And in the same way, this film as a whole was just constantly making these jumps, either leaving out necessary information or just expositing it in the most lazy, heavy-handed of ways. And also, the film just couldn't seem to stop telling us about these characters by having other characters literally spend entire scenes just reading about them and their psych profile, which was unfortunately what Alicia Vikander's character was too often confined to. And to be clear, I think she has turned in outstanding performances in things like last year's Ex Machina. But here, when she wasn't blankly staring at a computer monitor, she seemed to be in this perpetual state of constipation as she really struggled to push out her American accent. But I think my biggest letdown on this film were Matt Damon and Paul Greengrass, who, after Ultimatum was released, said they were done making Bourne films unless they felt inspired to come back and tell a new story. And I, for one, did not feel that inspiration. Unlike previous Bourne films, this story did feel like a lame attempt just to continue the franchise, its reveals feeling extremely cheap and tacked on. And along with that, the visual style, which as I described at one time did feel appropriate to this story and to this character, was now kind of just becoming white noise, because if in fact Jason Bourne was growing and evolving, shouldn't the camera work along with him? Which brings me to the second moment, which did kind of act as a paradigm for this entire film. During the film's climax, as a half a dozen different things were all happening at once, the filmmakers took the time to cut back to their primary henchman to show him gunning down yet another security guard. And to me, that moment just felt like a waste of time and gratuitous in its mere inclusion in the film, just prompting me to ask, why? Why include that in this film? Did it further the story? Did it say something new about the character? Did it present a ruthlessness that had not yet been established? Did it force him or the story to evolve in an interesting way? And in all of those instances, I just had to say no. And honestly, that's how I felt about pretty much all of this film. Not horrid or in some way destroying what had come before, but still failing to show me much of anything new, or execute what it did show me with much excitement or inventiveness. And it's for all those reasons I will give Jason Bourne a 2.5 out of 5. I would still love to know what you guys thought of the film, so definitely comment below and let me know. I've actually never watched 4 of the Bourne films. I've never seen Bourne Legacy with Mr. Jeremy Renner. Is it worth taking the time to watch that film, guys? Definitely comment below and let me know. Also, please do subscribe. I'm going to continue to review films and television on this channel, and I would love you to stay up to date on all of those things. But for now, I'm Chris Hartwell. This is The Heartbeat. Thank you for joining me.